After reviewing the concept of complexity and emergence, now we know why we are going to create an artificial society. So we need to set up an artificial society so that our small subparts, for example, individuals, can be modeled there, and more importantly, our interactions will be modeled and regenerated, replicated in that virtual society, and then we are going to have a complex model. Eventually, we are going to observe the emergent behavior and emergent pattern. That's our goal. So, to build our artificial society, what we are going to need is the agents. So, agents are, for example, a people of these artificial societies, and each of these agents will have internal states and behavioral rules. And these behavioral rules, for example, now you know that you have been studied the depth formalism, Patrinet, and cell automata, and other tools. And now you know that these are transitions, state transitions, right? And then some states are fixed for the agent to arrive, other states change through the interactions. And these are what? These are coming from the event, from the external outside world. And also, what you are going to need is the environment. For example, cell automata would be a good formalism to model these environments, and can be a landscape, topography, it can be a network. So this is a kind of medium. This is a media in the propagating these interactions so that each of these agents can be not an island but a connected social entity. And these rules, these behavior rules, are going to be an important thing to model, important aspect to model. Why is that? Because these are the governing principle of these agents, and some of the environments, for example, like the forest fire model, will also have some behavior rule, so that environment and agents will have those rules of transitions. And finally, these are all coming down to the implementation. These are all coming to the implementation of the object-oriented paradigm following. And now you would remember that Akin's problem, right? In the model, we have what? We have the agents of Keynes and the chessboard of the environment, so that each of these objects can have data field as an internal state, and those behaviors are going to be the methods. And finally, the encapsulation characteristic of an object will be a complete human, will complete this object as a software artifact, as a human behavior in this virtual world, so that we'll complete as an individual. So now we enumerated what would be the key characteristics of this artificial society, and what key components of this artificial society. And what I'm telling you is that we are going to need agent and environment. And agents and environment will have those rules, transition rules, and these implementations will be finally done as a programming language of the object-oriented paradigm. So now we come to this point, defining agents. We were talking about the agent-based model, so the most important part would be the agents. And agents are basically, agents are social entities with agency. This is really a bad way of defining a certain concept, because this is replicating a definition, okay? So now people will ask me what's the meaning of the agency? And here it is. So the agency is the capacity to act in a world, for example, like this. So if a certain social entity has an agency, it means that it can decide its own act and do that action. So the capacity for human beings to make choice decision making and impose those choice on the world, behavior. So that you need to have decision making and the behavior. And these are going to be, for example, if they are going to be implemented as a rules, then it's a rule-based model, right? Compared to the natural process, this is not an agency, for example. So there is a subtle difference. For example, let's going back to the water molecule forming a snowflake. In that case, then those water molecule does not have an agency because that it has its own, it does not have its own decision making. It has its own behavior, however, it does not decide itself. It just follows the natural order, right? Just follow the natural order because that it is not an agency because there is no choice. There is no choice, only involving unthinking deterministic process. Okay, some part is a stochastic process. However, it's just a random noise. Eventually, it will follow a deterministic natural law. So that it is really different from the natural process, which is governed by the physical or chemical or those kind of natural laws. However, as a human being, we do have our laws, social laws. Okay, we have our legal system. However, eventually, those legal systems do not prevent us from doing something. It just restricts us and it threatens us or make us abide by that rule. However, eventually we are going to have that agency to decide and act. This is really a definition of philosophy and sociology. However, still some other fields of our studies have those agents in their concept and they have their own relevant definitions. For example, we have a computer science which defines an agent as well. Usually in those computer science, intelligent agent is it means the autonomous entity which observes and acts upon an environment, detects and directs its activity towards achieving a certain goal, right? It has its own intelligence, like an artificial intelligence, AI. For example, those robots with AI would be an ideal example of this intelligent agent. This intelligent agent is often being governed by a certain goal, and it's going to be an autonomous entity which does not necessarily take the inputs out from the outside world, directive. They are not going to be only governed by the outside order command. They by self observe and act upon an environment. Okay, so that this is really relevant to this agency concept, and that is being called intelligent agent. And another definition of the agents concept involving agents in the CS, computer science, would be the software agent. Often you have a software agent when your Windows boot up. For example, like your vaccine program, or you have your own VPN service and so forth. And all those small part of the distributed software artifact would be called software agents. Okay, it's a piece of software that acts for a user or other program, and we would not recognize that it exists there. There it is. We may not recognize that. However, it is being there and helps us in doing our job. Okay, so it has its own interactions with us, and it has its own behavior rules and observations to support us. That's the software agents. Some other part of academia, we study economics, and it also has a serious definition of the agent. In economics, and also I want to say also in management, agent is an actor decision maker in a model. And for example, in economics, the agent would be conceptualized by stating this principal-agent problem. Anyone knows the principal-agent problem? You would know this if you studied just an introduction of the economics or the game theory. So, for example, let's say that there is a big company and the owners are the shareholders. Could be many, could be few. Some has so many stocks, some has just one or two stocks. Let's say that. Anyhow, these shareholders are principals. And principals want our stock values to grow. However, all of us cannot manage that big company, so we set up an agent, our agent, right? So that agent can represent our interests. However, problem is that those agents may be act upon by its own interest because it has what? It has agency, right? It has its own decision-making and behavior rules, so that it does not maximize the principal's utility, but rather its own utility. So that's the principal-agent problem, right? Right. So that is one example of the utilizing concept of agent in the economics, and another example of those conceptualization in the economics period of the agent is rational agent. Okay. Rational choice would be a big assumption that the majority of the economics would insist to have. Okay, rational choice is the basic building principle of the economics, and then here it is. Okay, an agent is being rational. Always? Not always. We are going to discuss a little bit later, but with a bounded knowledge. To his knowledge, he is going to be a rational agent. Anyhow, this rationality is going to be a building principle of this economics, and agency has what? Decision-making and behavior. And that decision-making is going to be what? Being rational, is the claim of the rational agent.